Hello, everyone. It's Friday evening. Oh, I don't know, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, somewhere around there. Going to do a wine tasting. I did a little podcast this morning on some wine information, and I'm going to do some research, and I'd like to kind of do some more podcast on wine and cheese pairings. I got a couple of books here. They're backwards, of course. Cheese primer, and another one that's just basically cheese. I've had these books for years. I've used them off and on for years. So at some point I'm going to make up a list of all of the supermarket cheeses that we can easily find. Munster, Gouda, Cheddars, Edams, things of that nature. And I'll make this list up, and then I will take time and pair those with various types of wines, and I'll do a podcast on that may help you. All right, so I'm going to start tonight's wine tasting with a question. Do you know what a claret is? Do you pronounce it claret, or do you pronounce it claret? It's C-L-A-R-E-T. Well, I don't think it has a French sound to it. I think it should be an English sound. I think it should be claret. Reason is because it's an English term. Do you know what a Bordeaux wine is? Most of you know that term. I've described several times that Bordeaux is basically, it's obviously from the Bordeaux region in France, but it's also basically either a Cabernet Sauvignon or it is a Merlot-based wine. Sometimes it's pure in the varietal. Sometimes it has a very few grapes that are blended in. The French law only allows 5 grapes to be grown in the Bordeaux region. I mentioned that in a podcast a day or two ago. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Carmenere, and I think the other one may be Cabernet Franc. I'm not sure. But in any event, the term claret comes from the English settlers in the 1600s. And the 1700s. And what the English sailors did was they would travel, in their travels, they would stop. First of all, you have to know that the region of Bordeaux is on the Atlantic Ocean, so it's on the French Atlantic coast. They would sometimes stop at the Bordeaux region in France, and they would pick up barrels of red wine. The English called this wine claret, or claret, if you want to be very simple about it. They called it claret. And it took on a term meaning red French wine. Now, it was from the Bordeaux region. So, obviously it was made in the Bordeaux style. It was made in the Bordeaux style in the 1600s, the 1700s, all the way through the way it's made today. They still had the same grapes growing, and they still made the wine the same way. It was either a Cab or it was a Merlot-based wine. So anyway, we're going to do a tasting for a claret today. Now, it's not a true claret in the sense that it's from Bordeaux, and the French no longer use the term, well, the French actually never did use the term claret. That was an English term. But the term claret has been adopted by some American winemakers. Now, when the Americans adopted this, they brought some information with them that would justify the claret. Number one, all clarets in the United States are generally made on the Bordeaux style, which means they're either Cabernet-based, Merlot-based, or with some blends of some other minor varietals. So when you see the term claret in an American wine, number one, don't even worry about it. It's the Bordeaux style wine. That's the bottom line. It's a Bordeaux style wine. Well, this wine happens to be from the Columbia Valley. I'll tell you about this wine in a second. The Columbia Valley, of course, is in Washington State, the Pacific Northwest. The Columbia Valley has the most unique terroir being the soils, the climatic effects on wine of any place in the country that I have seen other than, say, Napa Valley. It has minerals in its flavors. Most of your Washington wines and even some of your Oregon wines, they have a slight mineral taste to it. They have a chalky taste to it. They have just different minerals. It could be stone. It could be granite. They're just absolutely fascinating. Now, don't get scared when I say it has mineral taste. It's not anything that's going to drive you away. It's going to actually pull you in. So the mineral taste that you get in Northwest wines, Pacific Northwest wines, are something that you should look for. I go out of my way to buy Washington State wines, particularly the reds, and there's a lot of inexpensive ones. I mean, there must be 20 or 30 at any given grocery store of Washington State inexpensive wines from $8 to $10 to $12. Cabs, Merlots primarily, and they all have that unique taste. That's one of the few wines that you can spend $9 for and pick up a really unique flavor from the wine for a $9 wine. All right, so we're going to do what is called, the name of the winery is Empyrean, 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 and it's a Claret, and it's a 2020 Claret, and it's from the Columbia Valley in Washington State. Now, I did a little research on this wine before I came on here, and let me tell you what the makeup is. This is it's a true Claret. It's a true Bordeaux style wine. It's got 52% Merlot grapes in it. It's got 45% Cabernet Sauvignon grapes in it, and it's got the final 3% is Cabernet Franc. Those are all right down the middle. Those are all perfect Bordeaux style wines. This particular wine sells for $12, which is a very reasonable price. I've seen this wine in grocery stores from time to time. It's a little heavy on the alcohol. It's 13.5%, but that's becoming the norm. So I have not tasted this wine, but I want to tell you off the top of my head, if I saw this on a shelf at Kroger, Giant Eagle, someplace like that, I would not even hesitate to buy this wine. It's really going to be a nice wine. So now you have a little background on what a Claret is and how it pertains to Bordeaux and what the makeup of this particular grape is. You also now have a little background on the terroir from the Pacific Northwest, on some of the flavors that the soils up there impart on the wine. This, as I said, is from the Columbia Valley. So it particularly has some good, got a hair in my mouth, it particularly has some good mineral flavors. I'm looking forward to tasting this in just a second because I just love Pacific Northwest wines. So, and by the way, the other thing I was reading about this Empyrean Claret, it says that this wine would easily age 5 to 7 years. Well, this is a 2020. This is 2024, so this wine's 4 years old. So you got to figure if it's a 2020 wine, it was probably bottled in 2021 because they usually bottle it. Europeans keep them in the vats for a couple of years. Americans are impatient people, so we keep them in the vat for aging for 1 year. And then we go ahead and bottle. So I'm assuming this wine was probably bottled in 2021, but it should age, and the age goes from the date of the vintage. So it should age until 2025 to 2027 and still be quite fresh, and if there's heavy tannins, they should have mellowed out at that point. Other than that, let me get into the tasting and see what we get. Cindy, you came in just a little bit late. If you get a chance, I would recommend that you go back and listen. I talked a little bit about cheese pairings and my plans down the road, and I also talked a little bit about what a Claret is and so forth. So anyway, I just poured the wine, and we're going to give this a taste and see what we get. And by the way, I'm very hungry, so that's why I wanted to do the wine tasting now so I can eat. I didn't want to eat first and kind of mess up my palate. By the way, if you happen to not looked at Wayne's World of Wine page recently, I made a post about an hour ago. Marion is in Seattle with her two sons and their families, and she sent me a post or a picture of some cheeses that she bought, very unusual cheeses, and a Greek salami. And I, of course, That's the way I am. She's bringing those back to us. But I immediately looked up to see what wines pair with them. And then I ran downstairs into the wine cellar. And there it was. I had every type of wine that would pair with these three items that she is going to bring back. So that's something we're going to look forward to down the future. All right, let's look at the Claret here. Wayne just almost did the cardinal sin. He started swirling, and he sloshed right to the very top and almost sloshed it right out of the glass. That would have been embarrassing, but it wouldn't have been the first time, and it won't be the last time that I do that. All right, the viscosity is fantastic. A very well-made wine. The legs are good. The clarity of the wine is good. This wine is exceptionally I got a little gnat flying around here. This wine is exceptionally dark ruby red. It's a beautiful color wine. It's, I don't know. I mean, I've had tons of hundreds and thousands of gallons of Cabs and Merlots over my life, but this one really has a beautiful ruby red color. Let's see what we get here on the aroma. Oh, mercy. We've got a good one here, folks. You're going to really have to run out and try to find this wine at the supermarket if you can. If you can't find this particular Empyrean, try to find a Claret from the Pacific Northwest, the Columbia Valley. Chateau Saint Michel comes to mind, that they may make a Claret up there in the Pacific Northwest, but they're all going to be similar, but they'll all have the same unique characteristics. All right, this wine is complex. It has a standard black cherry that you would expect with a Merlot base, but it also has a lot of plum in the aroma. And if you've been out to a farm or a ranch and you've seen somebody, when you walk in the tack room and you smell leather, there's a very decent hint of leather in this wine. It's very complex. There's also a very, very faint hint of an orange rind. Like if you grab an orange and you start peeling it, you start opening it up, you're going to get that aroma of orange. Not orange zest, but the rind itself. So this wine has black cherry, there's plum, there's leather on the nose, and there's also a hint of orange. It's a very complex wine. Now I'm excited because those are very unusual tastes. I'm only thinking now about what I'm smelling, and then I'm throwing that in the pot with what I'm expecting from the terroir, the minerals from the Pacific Northwest on the palate. So here we go. Well, a couple of things before I describe flavors. And I'm going to have to go back and taste it again to get the flavors. Number one, the flavor hits you as soon as it touches your tongue. I mean, immediately it touches your tongue. You're overwhelmed with flavors. Second of all, it has tannins. It has good acidity, but it has tannins. You may have seen me squint my eyes just a little bit. That was because of the tannins. This is not a bitter tasting tannin. Like if you was to, something is over, I started to say tanninize, but I don't think that's a word. If a wine has way too much tannin and not enough acid to balance it out, it doesn't make you squint. It makes you pucker up, because tannin is a bitter substance that's in wine. This one is not bitter at all. I don't want to say it's sour. But it's not bitter, but there is definitely tannin. All right, I'm going to taste it this time just for the tannins and see what I'm getting. I got good tannins, but I didn't get the sourness that I got on the first taste that I made. It could be one of two reasons. Number one, I've already had a mouthful of this wine, and so my palate expected it, and because your palate's connected to your brain, obviously. That's number one. Number two, it's been in the glass now for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. So it's possible the tannins have even mellowed out a little bit. Let's go for some tasting now, truly some tasting. Get away from the tannins, the acidity. And by the way, it has a very long finish. And when I say a long finish, that means after you swallow the wine, you can still taste it in your mouth. That is a sign, number one, of a good wine. I will mention something I just thought of. I didn't pick up a lot of the mineral tastes, but I wasn't really focusing as much on taste as I was on tannins on those first two sips. Let's check it out again and see what we get on taste. Black cherry and plum, no question about it. Black cherry and plum. Now, I did not taste any leather. I did not taste any orange aroma, any orange rind. I also did not pick up any minerals. I kind of find that a little puzzling because Pacific Northwest generally has a lot of mineral flavors in their wines. So I guess I would have to say, because this wine is so well made, it probably hides it with the thickness. This is a thick wine. This is a chewy wine. This is a wine that is thick like you would get with a $50 bottle of wine or up. This one obviously only cost, I believe, around $12, but it has that thickness. This is a wine that I personally would not have any problems paying $25, $30, $35 for. Fortunately, it's not that expensive. So if you see this Empyrean Claret on the shelf, pick up a bottle or two. Let me taste it again. Still black cherry and plum. Nothing else is coming through. No other hints. So anyway, what would I pair this with? This wine would go good with any type of beef. Any type of beef. This wine would go good with lamb. Lamb, by the way, is one of the major dishes in the Bordeaux region of France. And a lot of lamb is eaten there. And Bordeaux's were styled to mix, or pair, I should say, well with lamb. I personally am not a lamb eater. I probably have eaten lamb maybe 3 times in my entire 73 years. I probably will not be buying any lamb. I don't even know how to fix lamb. So, but I do know my beef, and this wine will go good with beef. This would also, if you're a vegetarian, this would be a great vegetarian wine. And what I mean is you could roast yourself a big old tray of root veggies. You know, we're talking carrots and potatoes and green beans or snow peas, cauliflower, things of that nature. Roast them in a toaster oven, or roast them in your oven, and spice them up good. Put your favorite spices on it, and this wine would pair perfectly with that. Well, listen, that's all we're going to talk about as far as this 2020 Claret from Empyrean. But I do want to call your attention to, I still am really fascinated by the idea of doing a joint virtual wine tasting with the group. And the way I put it in my last podcast that I made earlier this morning, we'll pick a day of the week. And let's just say today is Friday. Let's just say next Wednesday. And I'm just using it for instance. We're probably not going to be off the ground by then. But let's just say, all right, somebody pick a bottle of wine, or I can pick the bottle of wine. It doesn't make any difference. Buy a bottle of wine, very inexpensive wine, that you know is available just nationwide at every supermarket you can dream of. a 14 Hands, which is a Washington winery, just comes to mind, or Menage a Trois, or Gnarly Head, Sovereign. It doesn't really matter. Something that you can find at every supermarket. Somebody pick a wine and say, okay, this is what I want to taste, and give me the name of the wine, the varietal, and the vintage. Say it's a 2021 Chateau Sovereign Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay, so then I'll go out and buy it, and everybody else goes out and buys it. And then we'll do a virtual tasting. Now, I know you can't talk to me, but you can type words to me. And we'll pick a date, and we'll all taste the wine at the same time. I'll open the wine. I'll taste, excuse me. I'll taste it. I'll give you my take on the nose, on the bouquet, my take on the taste, and you people do the same thing at the same time. You're smelling it and tasting it as I am, and you're typing in there, okay, this is what I'm smelling. This is the aromas that I'm getting. And it's a virtual wine tasting where we're all tasting the same wine at the same time. And I just think that'd be kind of cool. And we could make it a weekly thing. We could pick a time each week. We could say, okay, every Thursday at 5 o'clock, we're going to do a virtual wine tasting. But we need to decide, like 4 or 5 days in advance, what the wine is going to be, so that everybody has the opportunity to go out to the supermarket and buy a bottle of that wine. So we're all drinking the same wine at the same time, and we're having a joint tasting. Now, if you don't think the idea has merit, that's fine. But private message me and say, Wayne, that idea sucks. Okay. But I think it's a cool idea. So if you think that's a good idea, let me know. We can maybe make it happen. And it may start off with just 1 or 2 of you tasting wine, the same wine that I'm tasting at the same time, and both of us comparing. But it may grow. We have a lot of, pardon the word, we have a lot of stalkers on here. People that come on and watch, but never post, never say a word. They're just quiet as a church mouse, but they're learning a little bit about wine. All right, well, I'm going to end it at that, and I'll let you go. And I'm going to try to put a podcast together pairing some cheeses, everyday cheeses we can buy at Kroger or wherever, and the best wines that they pair with. And so look for that coming down the road in the near future. And I have a lot of ideas that I want to do podcasts on. Well, listen, I'll let you go, and thank you all for coming on and giving it a listen, and I will see you the next time around. Y'all take care now. Bye.